I love the definition that Merriam-Webster gives for freedom: the absence of necessity, coercion, or constraint in choice or action. So let me ask this question to you. If you were truly free, if the absence of necessity, coercion, or constraint was completely lifted from you, what would you be free to create in your life and the life around you? Let's think about that for a second. So, something that I am learning more and more is this, is that promises made by coercion are not binding. And there's a word for coercion. It's called tyranny. One of the things that I know about the framers of the Declaration of Independence is they belonged to a fraternal brotherhood. And these guys were allergic to tyranny. In fact, the very basis of their organization is an injunction against tyranny. And speaking of the framers of the Constitution, in the Declaration of Independence, there's this powerful line. It's at the end of it, but I think it says everything, and it's certainly salient to what I want to talk to today, in that they end it by saying, "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." Our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. They were in the game. They were fully committed. They were dedicated. And I think to experience freedom, we must also experience dedication. Dedication to form our life, to remember, and to engage with other people that hold these same values. I'm reading this book right now by a guy by the name of Pete Davids. The book is called Dedicated. In his book, Pete Davids says this: "The kinds of people that I'm talking about here are rebels. They live their lives in defiance of this dominant culture. They're citizens. They feel responsible for what happens to society. They're patriots. They love the places where they live and the neighbors who populate those places. They're builders. They turn ideas into reality over the long haul. They're stewards. They keep watch over institutions and communities. They're artisans. They take pride in their craft. And they're companions. They give time to people." This concept of really going against a culture that is always offering us options, going against a mentality that's kind of afraid. One of the things that he talks about in this book is that there's kind of like 3 fears that keep us from being really dedicated. And I want to talk about these over the next several months. The first is we have this fear of regret. That if we commit ourselves to this, that we'll regret what we did, and that we'll regret that we have not committed to something else. The second fear is that we have this fear of association, that we think that if we commit to something, that we'll be vulnerable to the chaos in which this thing is. And let's face it, when we commit to something, it's going to go through order, disorder, reorder. So the question is, can we stay with it through the long haul? Can we dedicate ourselves and move through, see what changes in us and see what changes in that? And then the third one is this, is that we fear that we're missing out. There's even a meme for it, isn't there? Fear of missing out. That if we commit, that if we dedicate ourselves to something, that we'll regret the commitments that come with it. But sometimes those commitments become a joy and not a burden. So really what we're talking about here is how we begin to shift our consciousness to deepen in, to think about the framers of the Declaration of Independence, because they were onto something, and that is this, is that no one is great alone. No one achieves their life's dreams alone. because we are social creatures. We are part of something greater than ourself. And that's the whole thing, right? When we commit ourselves to an ideal, a value that is greater than ourselves, we become connected to all that is. Dr. Holmes says this: treatment is the clarification of thought. It is clear thinking. So my invitation to each of us when you are watching this now is to engage in clear thinking. And just like the framers of the Constitution, something powerful happens when we dedicate ourselves.